because while you said it's definitely not a tier 1 deck right now, but it has its spot, and that kind of slightly scuffed way of making burst damage appear in the deck now that Kill Command is gone is the innovation that I love to see.
Yeah, I think what Hunter lost in Kill Command and Animal Companion, they've made up for with a bit more powerful card draw engine compared to before. Between the buff to tracking in its core set version, the reintroduction of Quickshot, and of course, Warsong Wrangler, I think it is definitely going to pack a punch.
Surrender repping the old T1 jersey, looking very fresh while he's doing it as well. Always kind of forget that he's still teammates with Orange Fino, and I guess previously Boar as well, given that they are all three of them out of the Grandmaster system. But Surrender now repping for APAC at least T1 and doing a fantastic job of it while he's at it.
Side note, Kranich is actually on T1 now as part of their streaming team.
Oh, right,
I mean, I expected him to get back into APAC Grandmasters. He hasn't quite done it yet, but I'm still holding out hope. In any case, it's interesting to me that Surrender has kept the Warsong Wrangler right off the bat. On the play, it feels awfully slow to me. It's not something I would, knee-jerk reaction as Hunter, but definitely it shows you where Surrender's head is at least in terms of the quality of that card. But his hand is so slow. Yikes.
Like, you're not in the position where you just kill Quickshot face, right? It's not that aggressive of a matchup, so just weaving in the hero power, okay, it's, I think, signaling quite clearly to GivePlease that it's not the kind of hand you want, as what was looking like a disastrous hand as well for GivePlease, as he's bobbing and weaving there, you can tell it's quite clearly turned into a fantastic hand for him. This is premium.
GivePlease is vibing. Okay, Surrender he drew a playable minion. Yes, it gives the Octobot buff, but I feel like he's meant to just spend his mana on 1/1/1 here. Oh. The other good thing about Warsong Wrangler, aside from its synergy with the Trampling Rhino, is that in all of the iterations of this Hunter deck that can be called decent lists, in my opinion, you only run 3 beasts. Aside from the Rhino, you have the Sunscale Raptor, which Surrender has played, and the Vulperkinger. So you're guaranteed to have your choice of what minion to buff. And if the Raptor sticks on the board, which is, I guess, relatively likely to do so, then the Warsong Wrangler can immediately buff it, should Surrender choose that as the draw off the top.
Wow, he's greeting it here. I was thinking that was a pretty nice time to go in. But, I guess if you were going to go for it there, you would be using removal spells in a deliberately inefficient way just to play them. Whereas if he waits for a turn and lets the, Warsong Wrangler come down, as you can see here, a very likely play on turn 4 to draw a beast from your deck and buff it all at the same time, I guess he's just realizing that there's going to be a better turn for the field contact later on where he can use his removal for what it was intended to do, to actually clear the board.
Yeah, I mean, given that GivePlease didn't actually have any options for that strong of a board presence, yes, he could put down Prize Plunders, but those die to things like Coldcard Packrunner plus Spell, they die to Wound Prey, which Surrender is running 2 copies of. Maybe he's just trying to hold out for an even bigger swing as opposed to giving Surrender a turn to respond, because GivePlease's read of Surrender's hand so far has just been probably a lot of removal, nothing proactive. Surrender really deep in the tank thinking about what the play is. I would be shocked to see anything but Warsong Wrangler here, but you can make the argument for not necessarily buffing the Sunscale Raptor, right? Because the Trampling Rhino is just a lot more stats next turn.
I think I can get on board with that. Yeah, like you said, he could have gone with the initial buff and then get a nice VT there, I suppose, but he just wants to get that down and realizes overall, with the way this hand is shaking out, he is getting there through burn. He wants to get the Rhino down, get the second Rhino with the Warsong Wrangler as well, and basically just cheese a victory at this point, which is doable. If each of these Rhinos deal, what would that be, like 8 damage, I suppose, if they're buffed to 9 attack minions and they attack into 1 health minions on the other side. He has all the damage he needs as long as he can find the time to do it.
That is true. It is a very long setup, but at the very least he can go Wrangler with Arcane Shot the next turn, but I'm having a hard time seeing him have the time to do all that because GivePlease, even though these look like meager minions, they add up to a lot of damage themselves. 10 damage already represented on board, so that's likely to raise Surrender if you just factor in GivePlease being able to eventually play Mask of Cthulhu, draw his other Wicked Stab, and that type of thing. So I think he has to go for a Rhino right now and trample over the field contact.
Yeah, I agree on the Rhino. I was wondering if you can ever get away with not killing the field contact on purpose in order to like say, okay, I'll let you draw a million cards. Like a lot of them draw and generate at the same time. Like the Wand Thief Penflinger also kind of does that because it bounces back to your hand at the end, but it's probably a little too scary. They can just dump their hand and then draw a million.
And for GivePlease, the game plan is very straightforward. He just has to optimize how much damage he can get done here. And I was going to say, I hope he doesn't fall into the trap of getting too greedy. I really like the idea of, say, Mancrick, Penflinger for just face damage and then use the Prize Plunderer to get rid of the Rhino. Instead, he's going for what looks like a slow line, but at the very least, he is going for Neophyte to make Surrender's turn slower. So this approach, I think, also just works because he's including Disruption in it.
Yeah, the step Neophyte is the part of this turn that I really, really love. I was initially looking at like step Octobot and then Penflinger it to try and reduce your whole hand yet further, and then you can go Mask of Cthulhu next turn to try and close out the game. I might have been getting a little bit too deep, but this way, again, you just need to buy yourself time. As long as Surrender doesn't cheese out a win in 2 turns, you are going to win here.
Yeah, and Surrender can never do that. With the combinations of damage that he has, the mana, it just doesn't work out in 2 turns. He cannot race GivePlease because while the Piercing Shot is very powerful, it takes up 4 mana. Rhino at this point would take 4 mana to draw and then 5 mana to play. It just doesn't fit.
So Rhino can deal 8. Arcane Shot, if you go face on this turn, bumps it up to 10. Quick Shot 13. Yeah, you're right. It's just not even close.
That's the thing with Hunter. You often feel like you're 1 turn away, but 1 turn is miles in the world of Rogue.
Yeah, very true. Especially with the taunts coming into play as well, which would reduce the amount of damage that the Rhino can do as well.
Surrender doing his best to math it out, see if there's any way he can set up a 2-turn lethal. Going to go for the Kolkar Pack Runner here instead, and abusing the lack of board space, I suppose. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows it's not good enough, but what can he do at this point? He had a hand that did not have any of his many, many 1-drops to start off with. Let me just read down the list here of what he did not draw. Sunscale Raptor, Demon Companion, Wolpertinger, Intrepid Initiate, all of which are 2 copies. You'd even settle for a Tracking, and he didn't get it.
Yeah, Wound Prey you'd be very happy with just to slam it onto the board. So many cards he just absolutely missed out on. It was about as bad of a starting hand as you can go for. And, you know, when you read down that list, it starts to make more sense why he did go for the Keeping of Warsong Wrangler, which looked very suspicious, obviously, at first, because it's not an aggressive card. But you do quickly realize that most of the deck does one basic thing of just put stats on the board. So you want to keep the one other part of the deck, which is the burst. Warsong Wrangler opens up so much burst potential by finding those trampling rhinos. So I respect Surrender's game plan. But the Hunter in its first outing here in Grandmasters not doing the business against the Rogue. But as you were saying, generally it doesn't do that.
I agree. Honestly, I'm still iffy about the Warsong Wrangler keep, and I wish I could go over it for Mullet over this weekend, but I realized how many Hunter players are out there. It's like me, Raven, and Surrender, and that's not really a think tank. That is Surrender carrying the 2 of us on his back when it comes to trying to figure out meta-heavy discussion. In any case, Surrender will have other chances to play this Hunter. Again, it's not the end of the world that it's lost to the Rogue. Surrender's strategy that he has so far gone 2-0 in match score with is to try and beat up on the Mage. So I really want to see if that matchup will come into play, because it seems like the only justification for Hunter in a tournament setting.
Yeah, I mean, what's he got left? With his own Mage band out of the way, still Paladin and Rogue on his own side. They look like as good a list as any to beat Mage. I will take some umbrage with the fact that he doesn't have Libram of Judgment in his Paladin for a bit of extra burst. I find that very, very useful if you're going for an anti-Mage strategy as Paladin, especially on ladder, where obviously Mages are running wild. But Ogromancer, I guess, in his Rogue is a nod to spell-heavy decks like the Mage that he's trying to target as well. So despite an initial loss there for Surrender, it's kind of expected, and I think if anyone can turn it around, it's Surrender with this strat that he's got going.
Absolutely. To take a look at the rest of Surrender's lineup, I'm also just trying to parse if there are any specific techs in here that make him a bit better against Rogue, against Mage. Although I'm not really seeing anything that seems strictly Mage targeted other than the Bring of Hunter as a concept.
Yeah.
If we look at his Paladin list, it is very, very standard. The Kazaka is still in there. He doesn't have Libram of Judgment, but I think that or another secret is the only flexibility anyway. Libram of Judgment, though, it feels like on ladder is the way to go if you're trying to beat Mage a bit better. In the Rogue list, he does have, again, a very cookie-cutter version of it with the field contacts, and maybe you could say the Cult Neophytes are there to make it a little bit better against Mage, but overall, I think Surrender is doing what he does best, is just bringing tried and true good decks, and then one that's a little bit off the wall and playing that better than everyone would on average.
Yeah, it's kind of the two most different out there strategies we have, which is obviously not saying much given that this week is all but ubiquitous in Mage Paladin and Rogue, sorry. But GivePlease again on the other side, he does not have that Paladin, which I think for the most part works well for Surrender. You know, I doubt that Hunter would have an especially good matchup. He loses out Rogue on Paladin, which is definitely something that you are looking to hit. But still, GivePlease, he's just got that Druid in there, which just seems like such a liability at the moment. I'm really not convinced on this deck whatsoever. The more I see it, the less I like it, in all honesty, because even when it gets pretty good hands with Gibberling and Glowfly Swarms at the start, it still struggles, I think, to lock out those games.
I mean, I'm kind of interested in seeing the Druid and the Hunter clash because these feel like the two decks that have been bullied to the bottom of the food chain by Mage and Rogue and Paladin. And if they can't even beat each other, I just don't know what they're doing in the meta. Taking a look once again at Surrender's Paladin list, I really want to revisit that argument of whether you should be running Libram of Judgment, for example, in Paladin, because Surrender has that lineup that seems to at least be soft targeting Mage. Do you have any strong opinions on that?
I mean, I really like the Libram of Judgment. I think if you're going for an anti-Mage strategy, or if you're playing Paladin on ladder, you should be running Libram of Judgment. I also think because of how Libram of Judgment disrupts Kazakas, you should not be playing Kazakas and instead be going for the Carial Roam build, which doesn't mind if your Libram of Judgment costs 4 while sitting in your deck. And as we can see here for GivePlease's Mage, which is for the most part very, very standard stuff, not an especially anti-aggro build of the deck, as he doesn't have the ice barriers in there, as some people have gone for, instead with just the Netherwinds. I think an extra Libram of Judgment would put Surrender in a great position to try and target this Mage. But we'll have to see. The Paladin, I think, is still in a perfectly decent spot as long as the Deck of Lunacy is not found, because it really does struggle to deal with those situations. But if it doesn't, you know, there are a lot of boards that Paladin makes that aren't especially vulnerable to Pexis Blast in the early game. In the late game, they're not especially weak to Flame Strike or Mask of Cthulhu, because they have these big Librams of Hope, Lady Liadrin, buffed up Aldor Truth Seekers, and it does feel like it's awkward for the Mage to deal with them, the Paladin, with their cards that are in their deck. But when you're going for Nagrand Slam, buffing them all up, clearing everything with 3 mana or 4 mana Cycle of Hatreds, whatever it may be, it becomes a very easy matchup indeed.
Yeah, it's a big if when you say they don't have the Lunacy, because somehow APAC 3 for 3 games of Mage that we had unbanned and on stream yesterday, they had the thing on 2.
They did indeed. And obviously a full mull here for Surrender. I think in this matchup you really, really want a good 1-drop, which, hurrah, he has finally found with the Volpatinger.
Yeah, decent enough here. It puts more damage on board than the Sunscale Raptor, which is why some people have even been cutting the Raptors from their lists altogether. I'd say the ideal one to play immediately is actually the Intrepid Initiate, but for this hand from Surrender where he has a 2-drop to follow up in the Kolkar Pack Runner, I think the Volpertinger is just fine. Just scary that there's this combustion from GivePlease. I have often made many position mistakes into that combustion. It comes more into play when you also have the Sunscale Raptor. So at the moment, no matter where Surrender puts the Kolkar Pack Runner, it's going to get combusted.
Very interesting starting turn here. I imagine you probably just go for the Kolkar Pack Runner here, but I'm seeing the benefit for going like Even Initiate Penflinger I'm kind of looking at just to get some stuff on the board and set up for Kolkar plus Wound next turn.
I'm interested by that, for sure. The use of Penflinger always feels a bit sus, but if you expect GivePLZ's turn to be Combustion, you can position it such that Penflinger is on the far right, Initiate's on the far left, so he has to choose which of those threats he wants to get rid of. Of course, that's us with the full knowledge that there is Combustion in the hand.
Yeah.
So it's a bit rough for Surrender to make that call, but ultimately, this is the play that really... If Dara could stop foaming at the mouth, it's the play that really makes Surrender's life difficult, because not only is it a full board clear, it is followed up by the card that has GivePlease nodding his head to whatever music we can't hear.
I will not stop frothing, Gia. This is unbelievable. We have had Deck of Lunacy, not in the starting hand, but top decked on 2. I think like 3 out of the 4 times we've seen Mage so far. It's uncanny. It's truly unbelievable.
You gotta feel for Surrender here. He is stressed out. I'm stressed out for him. And this is already, as early as now, I believe, a Penflinger, Wound, Prey, and Hero Power turn. The Hatchet, I don't think you're going to deal lethal over 2 turns, so I believe that the button is more valuable to him at this point. And then the next turn is probably like button, Hatchet, and tracking.
Do we like that more than like getting an actual decent 1-drop on the board? Like you can go tracking to try and find 1-drop and Hero Power, or even go Penflinger and Wound, Prey plus that at the end.
Definitely a consideration. It just might be me being traumatized by Mage, but at this point, like, they have Lunacy, you're not sticking any minions anymore. I could be very wrong about that, but it's also GivePlease entering the 4-mana breakpoint, which means 7-mana spells are all board clears, basically, and available. The Flinger is what comes to mind here because that's repetitive damage, but you also have to look at Quickshot because Surrender can very easily empty his hand over the next couple turns.
Yeah, that's what he's going for in the end. Passing up the, I guess, overall efficiency, or, you know, milking out all the value from the Hero Power, and like you said, just going for the extra card draw. But my oh my, is it going to have to be powerful and soon, because this is drawing 2 more cards from the deck, no Grand Slam found, and even if it's not active yet, you'd have to imagine this Ring Toss is going to buy him a huge amount of time. Counterspell is huge, Ice Barrier is huge.
The Ring Toss just covers all his bases. Ice Barrier, like you said, still in Standard, and Vaporize is gone. The ones that he doesn't want to see are gone. It's like GivePlease is guaranteed to get something good, something backbreaking for Surrender, and Surrender has drawn a rather awkward card because the only minion he can buff with Infestation immediately returns to his hand, and then he gets the 1-cost card that he would rather honestly not be there, so he could Quickshot and button immediately.
Yeah, he has to just go 1-drop Hero Power, you'd imagine. Yikes.
Big yikes. The Grand Slam, of course, not playable just yet, but Surrender, the clock is ticking. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, doesn't even think. Not quite enough to give us Surrender's trademark salty look to the side, as we so often get to see. But I'm sure we'll get there soon enough, as this is just looking very, very unlikely for Surrender to get the win. And this would be a brutal loss to take. This is exactly why he brought this Hunter, was because of its good matchup against Mage.
I want to say not 100% over, but it's looking pretty hopeless. I think he has to Quickshot the 4-3 as well, because the clock is between 2 or 3 turns. If he doesn't hit that, then GivePlease just goes face twice, and between 2 pings, Surrender is dead. So that is why he gets rid of Stelina there. He is still a long ways off from being able to deal the lethal, though. Ay, ay, ay.
I mean, you can't go rush on these, right? Because you need to play in the Grand Slam next turn, but that's fine. You can just play them, Vivid Spores them, so, I mean, nothing ever.
Oh my god, you're right. Actually, the ping and the brain
sure.
makes even more sense, right? Because of the Grand Slam being able to go completely face. Although he doesn't have board space for all of them. Such first world problems.
Yeah. Boo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, I mean, it opens up a target, I guess, for the Rhino on this turn. So you can just go Rhino hero power, deal 3 to face.
Yeah,
maybe by some miracle.
And then he's dead to Grand Slam. I mean, Surrender, of course, cannot even afford the luxury of playing around a Grand Slam, but such is the world we live in.
Okay, I will say that in Europe, Mage has been losing a bit. I can understand in the EU region not banning Mage. Here in APAC, we are draw lunacy gamers. It has just been every single game. Lunacy drawn on turn 2, slam it down, and then the best possible cards. No Deck of Chaos, no Idol of Yashaj, none of that nonsense. Just good stuff turn after turn, dominating, still at 100% win rate.
I mean, you put it exactly right. It's not just been draw lunacy. It's been have the nuts before and after the fact too. I could have seen a world where if, say, GivePlease had to ping instead of play Combustion before he played lunacy, perhaps Surrender could have had enough pressure by virtue of the call card sticking, and the Grand Slam could have been a turn too late. But it's been Combustion into lunacy into immediate board development on top of a ring toss already corrupted for Ice Barrier. It's just the perfect storm. I don't know what it is about APAC, Dark. I don't know.
We're just good. We're just good. Maybe it's the music selection. GivePlease. Just like, ain't nothing gonna bring me down. Just sailing through to a victory with the Mage every single time. But there it is, 2-0 up to GivePlease. Not a situation that many people will find themselves in ever against Surrender, to be honest. He has just been one of the most consistent, most dominant forces in Asia Pacific. But finally, maybe he has met his match in the almighty GivePlease, just getting the absolute nuts every single game. Who does he think he is coming into GM and doing that? He's the man. I mean, that's who he is.
He just had the right battle tag for this meta. He just knew there's one card that he would want to tell his deck, GivePlease, every single Mage game. And it's worked out for him so far. However, this one remaining deck, to be fair, this is the one we've always had questions about. This is the deck that we saw, unfortunately, Lambi series just take loss after loss with. And even yesterday, other players were looking quite shaky on it. Shaxi just barely got the win at the last possible moment. The token Druid.
Yeah, definitely been the weak point for a lot of our players. Obviously for Lambi, as you were saying in the previous series. Up against the remaining decks, though, for Surrender. As you were saying, the interesting one, which we haven't seen all too much of, is definitely the Hunter. You know, I think that the missing component there, because it's going to function fairly similarly, I think, to Paladin in the early game, where for the most part, just putting a lot of stats on board, doing it pretty efficiently for the most part. You know, Hunter has some good early game drops, but I think the real difference is the disruption. Hunter is a very face-up class right now. They're just playing stats and trying to go face. They don't have the Omar Yogg to disrupt. The Galloping Savior can be very, very annoying as well. And I think that might be the difficult spot for Hunter, because eventually the Druid is going to get down these dominant boards, huge Glowfly, huge Gibbling, and the Hunter just doesn't have the removal. It can't keep up with that in the mid-game.
Yeah, if Hunter has to start trading in this matchup, I think it's already a very, very bad sign of things to come. At least if it's those Glowfly / super wide Gibberling type boards. If it's just going to be against the Thorn Growth guys, I can understand that. And this is also one of the few metas where Face Hunter is okay with going second, because the coin is a very valuable resource to Kolkar Pack Runner. However, this is a pretty decent hand for Surrender to be going first with. I don't really want to see the Rinling's rifle kept, and probably not even the Hatchet, because like we were talking about, the trades, if ever, won't be happening until later.
Just want minions?
Mm-hmm. I want runner. Okay, this is the hand, but I think I saw a Lunar Eclipse in GivePlease's hand.
Yeah, I mean, they've both got pretty fantastic hands, to be honest here. Like, you can go Nature Studies on 1, Luna into Fungal Fortunes on 2. Maybe there's something even better than that with Gibbling here already.
Next turn, it's like Gibber, Coin, Lunar into Fungal. Hello?
Yeah, actually, you have to be careful with that, because the coin would eat up the mana discount from...
Coin, Lunar, and then Fungal.
Well, you wouldn't be able to get the Gibbling in there, right, if you went about it that way.
Am I missing something? That's what he's doing, right?
Well, he's not going for Fungal at the end.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Power,
power, yeah. My bad.
Yeah. which is still, obviously, if anything, more powerful than what you would see the other way. And Surrender, there it is. That is the reaction that, you know, I don't want to celebrate too much in his pain right here, but that's what you expect to see from Surrender at this point. Because honestly, yeah, you're allowed to be a bit upset here. Things could not really have gone worse. He hasn't been allowed to play Hearthstone this series.
I'm not sure what I can say to that other than...
Yes, you're correct.
Sad agreement. Yes, you're correct. You're correct. I'm wrong. You can't play Fungal Fort. Oh, man.
Oh, he can't even...
It's a shame because Surrender had a decent curve this game. Like, the War Song into Rhino. Rhino could have happened. But, I mean, obviously Surrender is a seasoned player who does his due diligence. He's not going to concede right away here. He is probably very much thinking, if there's not a board buff for this, it's not the end of the world because I got Chima. It's pretty durable against these Gibberlings. He can quick shot the 1-1, as sad as it seems, and then follow up with a good curve. But the problem is, there's Power of the Wild this turn.
That physically hurt me there. Having to quick shot a Gibberling and then you can't even take any trades on the board. Yikes. Yeah. Yikes indeed.
If anything, this series should tell you why it's literally just me and Raven playing Hunter on Fire these days.
I mean, you see it every so often. I think Orange is still giving it a good go every now and then waking up in 4-digit legend and coming back to reality.
And on top of, well, let's be honest, GivePlease drawing the absolute giga nuts every game.
Every game.
Surrender, I believe, has not been on coin even once. Oh my gosh, GivePlease! Look at him! Look at him just vibing, beating the all-time most winningest player in APAC.
I am become death. As he just draws the absolute nuts every game. Thumbs up. Yeah, I mean, you know what? It happens. We're finally seeing why you are bringing Druid to this meta as he just sails to a 3-0 victory. Not what I expected to see, but, you know, I suppose we'll enjoy it while we can, because I doubt we're going to see Surrender losing all too much come the rest of the season. He still gets to walk away with 2 points, it would be, for making it through to the quarterfinals. Kind of unfortunate that he sails through undefeated, loses one series and then out, but them's the breaks. That's how it works in a single elimination at top 8 here, and we will, of course, still get to see him next week. It's very, very early days here. But for GivePlease, just looking unstoppable there. That was unbelievable.
He had a very long and intricate series with plenty of decisions to be made yesterday. Today, it feels like the universe has decided to give him a break, gave him the easiest cards to play with for that situation. Although, to be fair, I would have messed up that Druid turn. I thought I could play Fungal Fortunes. For Surrender, I really feel bad that he didn't get to even showcase the unique strategy that he had going into this, because bear in mind, he played series off stream yesterday and the day before where he did beat people by leaving up Mage. It means that the strategy had potential, and we probably are not going to see anything along those lines next week because Mage is very likely to be weakened post-nerfs. So I just kind of wish we could have seen one of those games where Surrender or his practice group that was banning Paladin instead of Mage made it work.
And if you think he's bad now, as